So here's just a little bit of history behind the trick I'm going to show you. First of all, this trick is 100 years old, and it was first written about, as far as I know, by a man named Jordon in the year 1919, so more than 100 years ago. And I found it in an old book, and it's a great trick, but more than that, it's a great principle. If you've been in magic for any length of time, you'll probably find this method pretty unique and a little bit different than what you're used to. The effect is astounding. The problem is the original version I found a little bit too difficult. There's some sleight of hand, a little bit of mental gymnastics I didn't feel like doing. So I took that trick and I simplified it considerably and came up with this. So inspired by Jordon, this is what the trick would look like. When we're all done, I'll show you the setup and how it works, of course. But just from a performance level, this is kind of how you would perform it. So you would show your spectator a deck of cards and say, it's important that we use a shuffled deck. This looks pretty shuffled to me, but what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you, if you want, just cut the cards. And they can cut the cards. They don't have to, but we'll cut the cards just for fun. And then you say, now what's going to happen is I'm going to be reading your mind today. It's not the kind of like you pick a card and I find the card. I'm actually going to have you pick a card and embed it in your mind. And I'm just going to think as much as I can about what I think you're thinking about and try and get the impression of the card you're thinking of. So that's what we're going to do. Oh, and I almost forgot. This trick is very hard to do with low numbered cards. In other words, I'm hoping you pick like a court card, like a jack, a queen, or a king, because they're very picturesque and I can read those easier than I can, say, a 2 or a 3, because there's just not enough substance to lower cards. So to make this trick easier, because it's pretty difficult, we're going to remove the lower cards from the deck. So let's get rid of, say, the 2 through 6. We'll keep the aces because they're pretty substantive. But let's just make it a little bit easier. We're going to get rid of some cards. So we're going to get rid of the, let's see, the 6 for anything that's between 2 and 6. So let's go through. There's a 2, there's a 5. So there's a 2, a 4. Let's see, we want to get rid of the 3. There's a 4, 6. We'll keep the aces. There's 2, 3. We don't need those. I don't need a 5. We'll keep the 8s, but we'll get rid of 6s. 9's high enough. Ace is good. There's court cards. We want those. 10's good. Let's get rid of 5. Let's get rid of 4. Let's see, 5. Let's see, there's another 2. I just want to get rid of these low cards because this is hard enough to do without having to try and picture these in your head. Okay, so we got rid of some of the cards here. And so now we're just left with high cards. If you don't mind, we're just going to use this set of cards. It's basically 10 through king plus the aces. So just cards that have a lot of printing on them, frankly. And what I'm going to ask my spectator to do with these cards now is to divide them into 2 packets. So we're just going to do that. So I'll do it for the video, but your spectator could do this. Kind of like a, one for me, one for you kind of a deal. But we just basically want 2 packets. We're going to divide the remaining cards into these 2 smaller decks. And your spectator will do that. And then also what you're going to tell them is, I want you to choose one of these packets, and whichever packet you choose, that is the packet from which you will look at a card and memorize it, okay? You have a completely free choice. If you choose this packet, you're going to take a card out of that packet and memorize it. If you choose this packet, same thing. So they will do that. They will, and by the way, we can have shuffled these first. It's no problem. Once you get these shuffled, it doesn't matter, but if you think that helps, we can do that. But they're going to choose a card from either side. Let's say they take a card from here. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you the card in the camera. Okay, as the magician, you wouldn't need to know that. You are going to be able to read their mind, but you would need. So that's the card they would be. In this case, that's the card they would be memorizing. Okay, so they took it from this packet. So what we're going to do is we're going to discard these and then ask them to slip it wherever they want to in the remainder of the cards. They would put their card in here. And again, they can shuffle the packet. So let's say that they do that. Okay. This gets all shuffled up either by you or by them. Now, as you can see so far, you had a completely free choice. We had some random cards. We took some out. You split them in half, 2 different parts. You took one from, you chose which packet you took the card from and all that stuff. The point is it's mixed up and about as randomized as it can get. what I have to do is, I know that you're thinking of obviously one of these cards, but I have to get an impression in your mind of which card it is. So I want you to be thinking about it right now. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to begin to show you cards by laying them on the table. And when I lay a card down, I want you to not think of that card unless it is your card. So in other words, I'm going to put the 8 of spades down. If you were thinking of the 8 of spades, then thinking of it now. But if you weren't thinking of the card you did choose. And we're going to go through the packet like that. And I'm going to go through the whole packet because I want you to not think of the Jack of Diamonds unless it's the card you chose. If it is, think about it. Otherwise, think about the one you did choose. And I'm going to keep going through the cards. We have a small packet here to go through, so it won't take long. Keep thinking about your card, not this one, unless that is your card. Not this one, unless that is your card. And we're just going to keep going like this. I'll go slow enough to where I can get a strong enough impression about what card I think you're thinking of. Okay? So be thinking of that card. Be thinking of that card. Not this one, unless it's the one you chose. But I'm putting these down to contrast what you're thinking. Have you got it? You're thinking of the card, and it was one of these, obviously. And so picture that card, and I'm picturing it with you. I'm seeing you are picturing a court card. That helps because those really jump out. It's not one of the aces or whatever. It is a court card. It's not even a 10. It's close though. I think I think you've got a jack. Are you thinking of a jack? You are. I'm a little confused about the color because there's a lot of colors on that card, but they could only be a red or a black. So think about the suit of that jack. Okay, so think about it strongly, and I see a black suit, and I believe it's a spade. Were you thinking of the Jack of Spades? Is that what it was? Okay. And of course, they were. Now, you can be as dramatic as you want with all the mind reading stuff. The way this trick works is by a method that is very rarely used. And the setup, I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, the setup is a little complicated and takes time, but once it's set up, you're ready to go, okay? So I'm going to explain this best I can like this. We want to end up with these exact cards in these exact piles. So this pile of cards has something all in common. I'll explain in a second. And then this pile has something all in common that I will also explain. We purposely removed the low cards for a couple of reasons, psychological reasons and all that, stuff about mind reading. That's actually not true, but we did it because we really wanted to get rid of those cards because we want to work with these because it's just actually simpler to do the trick with. Okay, so let me explain to you first of all what these cards all have in common. Besides being 7 through King, Ace, these cards are all in this group because the black cards in this group are all even cards. Okay, so this group has an 8, Queen. The Queen is like a 12, so the Queen is even. 10, 10, 8, Queen. The black cards are even. The red cards are odd. The odd cards in this group, 9, Jack, 7. Remember, Jack is 11, King is 13. So the men are odd. That's an easy way to remember it. And the women are even. The queens are even. So you got the Jack, the 7, the King, the Ace, 9, 7, King, Jack. Notice all the red cards are odd. So this is even black, odd red. So I don't want to lose you. And now it might sound confusing, but it actually will make perfect sense. Okay, so that's why those cards are in one particular group. These cards are in the opposite group, where the black cards are the odds, right? 7, King, 9, King, 9, Jack, Ace, Ace, 7, Jack. Black cards, odd, and even cards, red. Again, there's the 8, the queens, and the 10s. Okay, so why do we do that? Well, because if you'll remember, when they picked a card from one pile and put it in the other pile, it's going to be very easy for me to see the odd man out, right? So if they, in fact, let's do what they did. They took the Jack of Spades from this group and they put it in this group. But the difference between the Jack of Spades and these cards is extremely subtle. Only way you'd know it is if you knew this odd even thing. So when I'm going through the cards like this, and I'm and I'm, you know, giving them all that talk about I'm going to read their mind, the first thing I notice is just by pushing off a few cards, I can see, and this is the deck or this is the packet that has the odd reds, right? So if I see an odd black, I know it's the odd man out. I know this card doesn't belong in this packet, and that tells me what the card is. So just by going like this, I can already see, oh, I've got the packet where the odd cards are red and the even cards are black. And as I'm going through this, it doesn't take much to go, oops, there's the guy that shouldn't be here. This is an odd card that's black, and he's in the wrong class. He's in the wrong group. So I know what their card is. It's a very, very clever method of discovering somebody's card, because no one will ever, in their wildest imagination, notice that that card doesn't belong with this group, because they look so amazingly randomized. And you feel like the decks have been shuffled, even though they haven't. Now remember, the packets were shuffled, which helps, which I highly recommend. As soon as we got to that step, you know, we did a lot of this, because these can be in any order. As long as these stay together and these stay together, right? They can be shuffled, and you should do that, because that puts shuffling in their head like we're working with a shuffle deck. Okay, so now that you know how it works, cool secret, by the way, I think. How do you set it up? Well, this is what I do. Start off with making your packets, the high cards. That would be 7, 8, 9, 10, Jack, King, Queen, Ace. And you want to separate them out on the table. And what I'm going to do is just what you would think. I'm going to put the odd, you know, reds here and the even blacks there. And then you're going to do the same thing here. The opposite, I should say. You're going to put the odd blacks here, even reds in this pile. Okay. Once you do that, just to check yourself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You will end up with 16 cards in each group, a total of 32, but 2 packets of 16. Now, once you have that, it's really easy to set up. We're going to interlace them. We want them to be alternating. Watch. We're going to put one here. So one from this group, one from this group, one from this group, one from this group. We're going to do this until we've exhausted all 32 cards. That means every other card in this packet that I'm creating, right? Every other card is going to belong to that particular group. Okay, so just make sure that we didn't mess up and just kind of peruse that real quick. We should have every other card. In this case, we have odd red, even black, that's good, even black, odd red, and so on. Okay, so you can just double check it, because you can't get that wrong. You don't want these to be, but it's important to know that every other card belongs to a group that no one would ever notice. Even if somebody looked at this spread, they go, oh yeah, this is just a bunch of random high cards. Okay, cool. Now, to make it really look shuffled, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the rest of the deck, because the reason for this is because we want them to see that these cards are all shuffled up and mixed up, and they are really in random order. Remember, they can cut them all they want as long as these stay in this cyclical order. So what I do is I take the rest of the cards, again, this is part of the setup, and I just put them anywhere, because we're going to take them out. And when we take them out, we'll be left with this. So we'll do this, and maybe I'll edit the video so you don't have to watch me do this, because it takes a few minutes. But I'm just putting cards in absolutely anywhere that makes them look shuffled and random as possible. Okay, okay. So now I've got a deck of cards that's got, again, my 2 groups. Let's call it Group A and Group B, right? The one group that had odd reds, black evens, and then the opposite group, Group B. They're interlaced. Every other card belongs to the same group. Then we've got low cards spread throughout the deck, and we can start the trick. These cards can be cut all you want. Can only be a single cut, can't shuffle them, can't do a triple cut, but you can be cut, and that's probably a good idea to do that too for whatever reason. I just as soon start the deck, or start the trick, I should say, by spreading the deck and saying, we're going to do this trick with a shuffle deck, as you can see, and then I scoop them up and I let them cut the deck as if we're beginning the trick, and I explain to them what I'm going to do, and then I say, oh, I forgot. We need to take out the low cards, because this is just too hard of a trick to do. I'm going to have to be able to picture what you're thinking, and it's really hard for somebody thinking of a 2 of hearts for me to see that. I need to see like a Queen of Hearts or a jack of spades or something like that, or even a 10 is easier. So it's really a hard trick to do. So let's take out the low cards. And so of course we did that. So I went through, and again, when you're doing this, you want to make, you can't be putting cards on the table. These have to stay in this order pretty much. Well, I guess you could put them on the table, but you're going to risk messing up your stack. So what I prefer to do is go through and just start looking for anything that's a 6 or lower. Keep the aces. And you don't want to mess this up. You don't want to accidentally leave one in there, right? So I'm taking out the 3s, I'm taking out the 4s, I'm keeping the aces, taking out a 6 and a 3. We're keeping the high cards, get rid of the 6, get rid of the 5, get rid of the 9, or rather the 4. And as you're doing this, you can tell them why. You go, these are low cards, and they're very hard for a mind reader to actually visualize when you're thinking of these cards, because there's just not enough ink on the card. I have to see something that's, you know, a little more flamboyant, so to speak. So you're just going through and go, let's just take out the low cards, and then we get rid of those. Now, if you've done that right, you'll be left with your 32 interlaced groups. And I like to just do a quick perusal to see if I messed up. If I can see a 2 through 6 or something, let's take that one out. So you don't want to mess that up. But anyway, so now we're left with what looks like just seemingly random cards for all the reasons we just said. Because we started off with something that looked quite shuffled, and then we took out a bunch of cards, which makes it automatically shuffled because we're removing cards from random places in the deck. So we're basically, it's like shuffling. And then to make it even more shuffled, we're about to let the spectator divide it into 2 groups. And if we do it this way, what they're really doing is they're setting us up to perform the trick. And if you don't feel comfortable with your spectator doing this, you can do it for them. You know, that's fine to do, I think. But if somebody that can handle cards, you want to do that. And then here's where you can start really shuffling. Say, hey, by the way, you know, we've shuffled, we cut, blah, blah, blah. But let's just give it another good shuffle. Let's shuffle this part up, and you can shuffle that one up, or whatever. This, I think, really helps solidify the fact that we're working with random cards. Because in a way we are, but in a way we're working with a very specific stack. Now, if this is worked out, this packet should be all, in this case, odd blacks, even reds. And this would be the opposite, where the reds are odd and the evens are black. And now it's just a matter of having them free choice. This is not a magician's choice. They get a free choice which packet you want to select your card from. Okay, you want to select from this one, then take one out. They'll do that. Immediately get rid of those and spread these out and put it in there. And then you can continue with the routine where you're just looking at the cards until you see the odd one that shouldn't be there. Now you can read their mind. Okay, that setup is kind of crazy, I know. But once you do it a couple times, it makes perfect sense. When I first figured this out, it took me a long time to go, wait, what am I doing? I'm losing track. So just remember that you want to start off with the 32 high cards, break them into your 2 groups. One of them has to be odd red, even black. The other one has to be the opposite of that. You'll have 16 in each. And then once you have this, you're ready to set up the deck by interlacing them, spreading it out, putting the low cards in, and then you're good to go. Okay, I feel like the explanation for that is more complicated than the trick itself, which is often the case. And the setup is pretty intense, but I've tried it showing with non-magicians, and it is pretty incredible because they are getting, you know, a whole lot going on with mixed up cards. And then if you really play up on the mentalism thing, I've really had a picture. Yeah, I'm seeing a red card. It's a heart. Is that a king? If you can really learn how to be dramatic with those, it plays really well. So play with that. Maybe make your own variation like I did. Again, this was inspired from a 100-year-old trick. I love the method of the odd evens, red, blacks. So play with that and see what you come up with. This is a good one to be creative with, and it's a good one to fool somebody and read their mind.